Hi, I'm Joni Patrie. Welcome to our Get Astrologic Now YouTube channel. And today I want to talk about world predictions and how an astrologer is able to make world predictions, because it's not an easy feat to make world predictions using astrology, because we don't really have a basis or a chart that we're working with unless we're using a country's chart. But overall, the way that we work with world predictions is it's cycles within cycles. So we're looking at the grand cycle. The first grand cycle, that's the biggest, is the precessional cycle that dictates the ages of mankind. This cycle is a 26,000 year cycle, 24 to 26 years cycle. It makes a complete revolution that we go through all 12 of the zodiacal signs. It takes that long. And depending on what zodiacal sign we're in at that time, it really does flavor the whole world in terms of what people are interested in, how things work, and the evolution in consciousness of the people during that age. So right now we're in the age of Pisces. It started approximately 2,000 years ago. And 2,000 years ago was the start of Christianity with the birth of Jesus Christ. So when you think about the age of Pisces and you think about what Christianity's symbol is and what the symbol for Pisces is, we have the fish. And also when we're looking at these ages, you'll see that the times reflect what that's all about. That's a time when all of the beautiful churches were built all over Europe, and all over the world, churches and places, temples and places of reverence were the most important places where people went and felt secure. In America, we're in the age of Pisces, and everywhere you have a church, an organization that brings people together in such a way, whether, and in Texas, where I am, we have a church almost on every corner, and this is in the age of Pisces. And so the next cycle within a cycle that I look at in terms of prediction is going to be the outer planets, because the outer planets, although they're not used so much in Vedic astrology, I use them in terms of world events, because they really are flavoring the masses and the mass consciousness and how people feel. It's the energy of the people combined. This is consciousness, mass level. So when you find that there's hard aspects between the outer planets, you'll see revolutions and big changes in the world. For example, this year we have the Grand Cross, and in sidereal Vedic astrology, it's in the mutable signs, and this has created many tensions, wars, and changes that have broken out throughout this past, this cross started forming 2 years ago. So this goes on for a long period of time, but we have got Pluto that is squaring Uranus. These are two outer planets that move very slow, and this represents the breakdown of the old, the breakdown of the past and power struggles with, monopolies in the world and struggles with dictatorships. These are all coming to an end with this hardcore square between Pluto and Uranus. And Mars came into the picture recently that caused a lot of uproar, and we saw a lot of war that was breaking out, especially around last spring. And then Jupiter was involved in this while it was in Gemini, but Mars is about to shift and Jupiter just shifted last month. So changes are on the horizon. The next cycle that is imperative in terms of looking at the consciousness and what's happening in the world, especially the economy, is the cycle of Jupiter and Saturn and their relationship to one another. These are called the social planets, and they really have so much to do with the economy. So when they come into certain patterns, they create big changes in the economy, which is about to occur right now as they're forming a square until Saturn moves out of the sign of Libra into Scorpio in November, it'll be stressful economically in the world because of the Jupiter-Saturn configuration. Now, the next pattern that comes into play, the cycle, is Rahu and Ketu. Wherever Rahu and Ketu are will indicate the biggest changes globally. They are the reason that we have the solar and lunar eclipses, which the eclipses occur twice a year. We have a solar eclipse twice a year, 6 months apart. And these are the times of the biggest change and flux. And, you know, I always tell my students, just notice on the news, notice in the air, you feel tension and pressure and stress, and many changes start to, I start to hear sirens more often. You know, there's just a lot of things going on around the time of eclipses, particularly earthquakes and earth changes. So we have the eclipses twice a year, and when you look at the Rahu and Ketu involved with the planets themselves, like when they come together with Jupiter, Saturn, or the faster moving planets, this will create events. So then we're looking at the faster moving planets, which are the triggers. They will trigger as they come and join the slower moving planets, either the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, or when they come together with Saturn or Jupiter. But the most important thing to focus in on the faster moving planets, because the Sun, Mercury, and Venus pretty much go through the whole zodiac once a year. But when they make their retrograde stations, when they go retrograde, slow down, go retrograde, this is where they're making their impact. And this is another tool for prediction. So when we have the faster moving planets slow down and go stop, go retrograde, that degree that it stops to go retrograde is vitally important. And it's a sensitive point throughout that year when other planets cross over that degree, it forms events. And then there's that other station that it stops before it goes direct. And that's another sensitive degree. So we've just had these degrees that are vitally important with Mars, because Mars is the planet that just went direct. And so Mars's special degrees are 0 degrees of Libra, that's where it stopped to go retrograde, and 14 degrees of Virgo, that's where it stopped to go direct. The other was retrograde. So right now, within a few days, we're going to have the Mars and Rahu just cross, because remember the nodes go backwards, they're going to cross. Mars is direct now, and they're going to cross at 0 degrees of Libra. And this 0 degrees of Libra is where Mars just happened to station in March, around March 1st or 2nd. It's stationed to go retrograde at 0 Libra. So that's why right now we have all this calamity and war. Mars is about war. And then again with Rahu and Mars, that combination is violent. It deals with fighting, aggression, everything to do with weapons and danger. So be careful, because right now we're in a critical phase. Also, another thing that's about to happen in August is going to be that we're going to have Saturn and Mars come together. That's always very harsh and dramatic and difficult. And depending on what your ascendant is in your own chart, what houses Mars rules will be under pressure for you. So if you have a Scorpio ascendant, that means Mars rules your ascendant and your 6th house. There could be some health issues, for example, during that time. That date will be August 25th. It is actually the new moon. And during that new moon, Mars and Saturn will conjoin exactly at 23 degrees of Libra. Now, because Rahu and Ketu just are about to shift signs, Rahu's going to go into Virgo, and Ketu's going to go, Rahu's going to go into Virgo, and Ketu's going to go into Pisces. Now, those houses in your chart become sensitized to these radical changes. And so as I was talking about in world events, when we're making world events, we want to look at the charts of countries in order to determine where these events will be happening. And I made note of the countries that were the most affected by this change of Rahu and Ketu. And one is really going to be affected is China. China has 4 planets in Virgo that Rahu's going to cross over. Libya's got Saturn-Mars conjunction in Virgo, and they are in late degrees, so this is coming up very soon for Libya. Turkey, Iraq, and France and Germany were very notable in terms of planets being in the sign of Virgo, where Rahu has just shifted in. Remember that the nodes are in a sign for a year and a half, but they will be noticeable as soon as the sign changes, the sign change. And of course, the United States of America has a very important planet in Virgo. It's Saturn. And I noticed that Saturn's degree in the United States chart is about, let's see here, 24 degrees of Virgo. And by August, Rahu's going to be about 26 degrees of Virgo, because the nodes are moving fast. I use the true nodes. They're going to start really making way into the sign of Virgo. So we're going to see a lot of calamity, a lot of change, and a lot of disruption in our government, which is already happening, and for the president, because Saturn is in the 10th house of the United States chart. This is the leadership of the world. The United States is going to have major difficulty, major problems with Rahu crossing over the natal Saturn. So that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover today in terms of how we make our world predictions. I also want to remind everyone, if you'd like a personal reading, please, you can go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org, and go to select schedule a reading. And I will talk to you next time about more predictions.